Okay, so our next guest here is Kelsea Sutton. Kelsea is the compliance officer at First Fidelity Bank in Burke. She's also kind of one of those just super volunteers in Burke who's involved in just about everything, or so it seems. But back in May, Kelsea shared on Basecamp that she'd received some grant dollars from Wellmark for what I sounded like and felt like a really significant park project. And it had a splash pad in there. So she's agreed to come on and tell us some more about this whole project. So with that, Kelsea, take it away.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to talk kind of fast because I want to fit a lot in. And I'm just like so excited about this project. And it's been what we've been working on for like a year. So Amy, I'm going to say like a lot of the same things, or touch on a lot of the same things that Amy did. There were a lot of similarities. This is what you're looking at right now is our 3D design, what we sent out for RFPs and what will basically be built in Burke. So I kind of wanted to talk about our secret sauce ingredients for this project. I think every project has its own. And this I think is a very Dakota Resources-esque project. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is there's a lot of informal pre-planning that went into this project. So there were years of community meetings and discussions that lots of times started, oh, we don't have a pool. Gregory has a pool 8 miles away. Bonesteel has a pool 20 miles away. We don't have a pool in Burke. And it didn't feel right to build a pool in Burke, and it felt hard. And a lot of communities are, really struggling to keep their pools open. But a splash pad seemed like a more manageable idea. So this really had been tossed around in the community for quite a while. And then the farmers market, you guys, some of you have heard me talk before, moved down to the park in 2019 and just has exploded. And I didn't use that as my check-in question because like we almost can't handle more foot traffic at the farmers market right now. It's become a very cool space at the park. And so I think people were really looking to the park and at the park more than maybe they had for some years. And so there's a lot of like informal pre-planning that went into this project that I think helped it be really successful, including the Empower process with Dakota Resources. It came up a lot during our community conversations. Then there were a couple catalysts. So in the summer of 2020, the city started talking about expanding camping at the park into the space that we had sort of tentatively thought it'd be cool to have a splash pad here. So, that kind of spurred some people specifically into action, going to the council saying, hey, will you hold off on that? Let us make a proposal about a splash pad. At that time, I was pregnant. And so another catalyst was my husband and I, we had a beautiful baby girl last summer, and she stayed with us for 7 days. And she passed away. She had a knot in her cord. And so we took her memorial money and used that as another catalyst for this project. And it was really, I think, important to have that kickoff, funding. It made a difference in this project, and it made a difference for good planning. We kind of gathered our crowd. We got a committee. We had a city council member. I think it's, when you're working with a city project, having a city council member on your team is a good deal. Daycare provider, our hospital CEO, me and another hospital employee, all parents and grandparents. And they're really just have good skills, like everybody brought good skills to the table. Did a lot of grant writing. Our biggest grant writing was just shooting the moon with the Wellmark $100,000 matching grant. And then that, I think it's probably that week I posted up Basecamp because I was like so excited. I could hardly contain myself. So we got this big grant, right? And that really kicked off our local fundraising. And we've raised, between other grants and other community organizations and individuals and businesses, we've raised $125,000 in under 3 months. So we're nearing our goal. We've got our bids back. And I think that Wellmark grant was another catalyst, right? That was another big deal for the community. So some things that have made it successful. One, I think, Mike, you could show the park what it looks like now. So this is the aerial view of the park now. You can see the tennis courts and basketball courts in the middle of the park. Yep, and then the playground is a little to the left of those. And so if we really thought it was important to have good visuals for this project, and we thought it was also important if we're going to plop a splash pad in and we need an engineer to help us do that, and he was going to be on site, that we really think about other ways to improve the park while he was there. We did not think we were going to be investing very much extra money into that planning. And so if you go to the next slide, Mike, you can see after several drafts, go to the other one. That one, yeah. After several drafts, this is sort of the draft we're working with right now. And it, I think, really helps people understand and imagine what you're talking about, and gives you things to point to so they can see how they might have a different experience at the park, as well as where the logistics of the splash pad. I have learned my lesson, although Amy, I'm still learning it over and over, that obnoxious and constant communications are helpful. And so we really tried to focus on hitting the newspaper as much as we could, going to every city council meeting to give updates. It's very easy to lose good communication there. And then we had a public meeting, and as well as posting, sort of everything that went in the paper also went on social media, and it kind of hit two different crowds there. I think that constant communications really helped the project be successful. I think the visuals helped the project be successful. And I think the big picture effort really grounds the community in a cool conversation. And it also sort of, does that go big thing. And then you're like, but it's okay. I know it's a lot of change, but we're just doing this one little portion. So if you go back to that other drawing, Mike, you can see we're just doing phase 1 now, which is this area 1. And we've been showing the people that a lot, but we have started some of the planning for area 2 with Land and Water Conservation Fund to have a new shade pavilion for the farmers market. And then I think the last thing that was just super successful about was timing. I mean, the timing coalesced in the right way. Burke's had a really hard few years. We had a very destructive tornado in our community. And right after that, we kind of got cleaned up and got on our feet, and then the pandemic hit our town. We've had some very sad, tragic losses of children and adults in our community that just felt really hard. And this, I think, was, the pre-planning coupled with the timing. It was a happy thing for our community to focus on. It was a happy, positive project for kids and families. And I think that made a big difference in how everybody just showed up with the money and the support for the project. So, yeah. The population of Burke is 630, or it's 605 or 4, I think, but it's projected to grow. So we've been using our projection number.
Right. We got to put out some good word, right? Good. Yeah. And I just love, one of the things that I love about this project, Kelsey, is that you chose something a little different than what some other towns around you have, right? We don't have to be exactly the same just because they have it. Let's try to do something just a little different. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we go to the questions?
Well, I would totally, Mike, this is cool for Burke, but it's something different for other kids in the area too. There's not another splash pad nearby. So hopefully other people want to come to town and use the splash pad because it's different than their pools. So,
yeah, great. How about some questions?
So Kelsey, you already started kind of touching on this, but that was going to be my question of, do you see this more so as a thing for Burke, or do you see it as like people will come from Gregory and Winter and other places in the area to experience it? How does the community feel about that too?
I think everybody in the community is on the same page of it being sort of like 60-40, maybe, right? It's a safe place for kids to go play in the summer when it's hot. They can walk there in Burke in the city limits. But that everybody, I think, can see, because there's one in Stewart, Nebraska, and people will drive down there they drive an hour and 15 minutes to use their splash pad. So I think we all are pretty sure that people from Gregory and Bonesteel and even Winter will come down and maybe have birthday parties, have fun little events, and use the splash pad in the summertime.
Great.
I think it's interesting that you're working with an architect or at least a design firm on this confluence, so isn't that expensive to work with groups like that? How'd you afford that? Can't you figure this out yourself?
Mm-hmm. I totally, even though I know I want to work with an engineer and architect, one, because they blow my mind. I love working with them. They take ideas and they make you see them. And two, I know that we need them. I still feel that tension, what do we need to spend money on? But I think that is invaluable money that pays for itself over and over. And that's a really good place. We had memorial money to kind of do what we wanted with. So that was kind of unique, but that pre-planning phase is a really good thing, I think, to go after grant dollars for. It's hard for a city council or a community to say no when you say, well, hey, I'm going to do the work and I've got the money, right? Then it's harder I think you can get to a more positive place. And so I do think like pursuing grant writing for that pre-planning phase is a good idea. And it was essential to this project. This project's going to be way, way better because of it.
And I hope you recognize some sarcasm
I cannot do this by myself, Mike. Yes, I know. I cannot. I am a lawyer. I am not an engineer.
All right. One more question?
I have one, Mike. So maybe Amy and Kelsey, what was the process that you went through for your projects? Did you start with the engineer and the concepts and then moved into, the funding and the grant writing, or a mix? I'm just curious to kind of see how our project is following your projects as far as the timeline and what's being done first. And is there anything that you would have changed along the path?
Okay. Start with the question again. I think I have it, but say it again.
So what was the steps that you took along the way, like start to where you are now?
Yeah. Okay. So we had memorial money. So we got a little money to play with, and you could fundraise it or grant write for it or have memorial money. And if you don't have permission, I saw in the chat, someone had a question about permission. I think there are ways to do grant writing without explicit permission, for a final approval on a project. So we had the money, a little money, and then we just engaged the engineer ourselves personally. And then we went through several drafts of placement of design. And then all throughout the process, we're sort of developing a budget, getting an idea of what things are going to cost. We're meeting with vendors, and we're talking to the city council, kind of getting an idea of where we're getting pushback, what people aren't liking. And then we did also several conversations with the splash pad vendor that we liked, and had a very close to final design and size when we put out our RFP. And I would be happy, Amanda, if that would be helpful for you. I wrote the RFP myself. I had our planning district review it for us, and the city's attorney review it for us. But it was, the RFP was very geared towards getting what we'd already decided was in our budget and in our vision. And there's different ways to do that though too, So we did a lot of drafts with a splash pad vendor, and then we just put out, I don't think I'm being very helpful because I'm jumping all around our steps. Drawings, splash pad vendor, in the middle grant writing, back to splash pad vendor and drawings. Okay, so it's kind of a circle and a line.
And so the process when the city was actually notified was when?
We got permission from the city to pursue this project in the summer of 2020. So we went to the city, we said, do we have your permission to pursue this project? And then we went back and got specific permission to apply for the Wellmark grant, the big grant. And so we've gone to the city a few times for permission. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to make sure, hopefully that answered your question, Tammy. Is that good? Yeah, thumbs up. All right. And so I just want to come back to this thing about, the design work. These visuals are very helpful in galvanizing public opinion towards this. And you may be surprised at who you can pull in to do some work as well, including your planning district. If you just need the start of something for a very rough concept, they might be able to do something just as simple as this for you. So, well done. I'm going to move on. I know, Carol, we'll come back to your question right at the end here, but I want to make sure we have enough time for Callie in the next session.